All right, well, I'm going to give this a try. I had a couple things I wanted to talk over today. One of them is a little bit about what's going on with the court case with John and Michelle, and where, in my mind, it stands, and some of the things that went about to bring it to the point where it is. That's all. And everything I'm going to talk about is my opinion. I haven't been coached by anybody. It's strictly what I see on there and how I feel about it. And whether it's fair or not, I don't know. It's like I say, it's my opinion. But Bruce has been told that he can leave the case by the judge. And the judge is, federal, or he's a magistrate, federal magistrate. And a while back, I looked his record up, and this is a man all the way from high school through college and into his position of magistrate at this point. He has been, his background to me looks like a very intelligent person. He also looks like a person that strives to be the best at no matter what he does. And in fact, he has proven his abilities by the accolades that he's accumulated through the educational process. And his peers feel the same way about him. And so somebody like that is used to striving to do their very best. I think he's knowledgeable in the court system. And as far as I'm concerned, up to this point, he has done the job he was hired for. Okay. Now, you notice I put up to this point. And there's a reason for that, is because I think along the way, people can get very aggravated about the situation they're in. And as we all know, this particular court case seems to be somewhat unique. One is that a lot of it has to do with our First Amendment, freedom of speech. Also, because of protection orders that have been filed out there, it has to do with our these PO orders taking away some of those freedoms. And we all worry about it. We're in a free country. We fight for anything that restricts us, or against everything that restricts us, depending on what our situation is at the time. And when I walk through all these scenarios of what's going on with Michelle and John and Bruce and the federal magistrate, and also Mr. Hales and his lawyer, Shockett. Okay? This is a federal civil case that I'm talking about. And it all has to do with a dispute down in Otter Creek, Florida. Again, I want to remind you, this is my opinion. Nobody has coached me in it. And it's not given as an expert. As many years as I've got on this earth, I've never went to school to be a lawyer. All I can do is give you an opinion of how I think the laws should be, not that they are. So here we go. Bruce has submitted, and it's been approved, for dismissal from representing John and Michelle. And in fact, by paperwork, John and Michelle have dismissed him. Okay? He went to the courts and told them, and asked them actually, for that privilege of being able to dismiss himself away from representing John and Michelle. Okay. And the judge asked for reasons. Now, before this part came down, Bruce submitted to the court that he would not appear on a date where he was going to be possible sanctions against him, as well as Shockett, the other lawyer. During that period of time, where he was given time to submit paperwork, he had received threats, and his family received threats. His wife's employer was called. They were informed that apparently on the channel, my understanding is it was Mr. Hale's channel, that they were aware of his wife's itinerary, what her schedules were, where she worked. And there was actually admitted of a call to the boss. Consequently, his wife, Bruce's wife, Mrs. Maskin, quit work there and informed her company that she would no longer be back because of other reasons. I didn't see where it said the actual reason. And then the whole thing was reported to the local police department. And that's as far as it went at that point, okay? That is when all the submittals went in to the judge. And in those submittals were the documentation of the different videos that were put up that Bruce felt hate was being generated to over 700,000 direct subs to Mr. Hales, but actually included others that would lead up to somewhere around 1 million people looking at this documentation and some of this stuff that became hateful and drew a lot of scrutiny and threats back to him and his family. Now, the judge did dismiss him from representing John and Michelle. But I believe the reason, or only thing that I could see that was actually given, was because John and Michelle had asked him to dismiss himself from the case. So, if you're in the judge's position, and the door was open for all this information that came in there. By the way, the information covered the case itself. It gave parameters all the way around about all the reasons all this stuff was happening. The actions and reactions and the name calling and the threats and all of that. Okay, it's all in a pretty good sized document sent in. And all of us got to see it. All of us out here that were on video that have channels, we all looked at it with interest. And all the different sides were looking at it. Not just one or two of us. It could be well over 1 million people seeing all this stuff. Okay, so that when the judge gave Bruce the okay to dismiss, he stated in there, or the documentation shows, that he's got 7 days to handle the entire case, all the paperwork, everything that pertains to that case, over to John and Michelle. 7 days. And he gave Michelle and John 30 days to get another lawyer to represent him, or he would proceed after 30 days that they would be on their own. That in itself, what that tells me is this. Even though he had asked the lawyer for a reason why he was leaving, by the documentation from that last piece that was given back out, his reason was that John and Michelle asked him to leave, because he did not use anything in that document, in the documents that were submitted by Bruce, as acceptance for him to leave. Now think about that, folks. What does that do to all that paperwork that's out there that was submitted? Because if you look at it, some of it that transpired is criminal. Is there a federal judge out there sitting on proof of criminal enterprise? And you're going to ask me, now, Ray, you're not a lawyer. So what makes you think that there was anything in there criminal? Well, let me see. My understanding is that neither side is allowed to intimidate witnesses, officers of the court, or anybody connected with either party in those cases. And yet, that paperwork, just about every page of it that was submitted, has intimidating circumstances within it. So, if you have this kind of proof and you're sitting on it, is that legal? If, as an officer of the court, are you allowed to dismiss it without investigation? Now, if he would have recognized it as a reason to dismiss Bruce, would it be an admission of those things that were within the document that was submitted? A document that he asked for, him the judge, but he made no recollections of reading it. Do you guys get where I'm coming from? Why would you, as a judge, ask for these kind of submittals without acknowledging it? In other words, was there nothing there? In other words, he went back and used the okay from John and Michelle? If so, if that's the case, why would he have asked in the first place a submittal from the lawyer for reasons if he needed no other reason other than John and Michelle to say, I want you off the case? Unless he was trying to close the door on the whole thing and get it done over quickly. And therefore, if he takes the case of John and Michelle saying they dismissed the lawyer, then he can come back, continue the case, and say, look, and even though the document don't spell it out that way, he can say, you chose not to have representation. And I am going to me, that's okay. I'm a judge. I'm saying, okay, if you have no other lawyer between now and then 30 days from now, I consider that you are representing yourself, and we are going to proceed. There's no ifs nor ands, no in-betweens, no other things to look at. He didn't ask for a submittal from John and Michelle why they did that. But I wonder why didn't he? I thought the scales of justice were equal and that we all got an equal chance to explain ourselves in some manner. But it looks to me that maybe, just maybe somebody was looking for a way, an easy way out of the problems that were within this case. Because my understanding is he admitted that he may have done some other things differently in the case the judge had earlier, just before all these submittals. So would it have been his mistake to allow the documents that Bruce got in there to be record and use any part of that as an excuse to let him go? Because it's a clear case of intimidation. And it's very clear that that's what Bruce had outlined in the case. If that being so, the easy way out was to close the door on Michelle and John. And now, if they can't come up with a lawyer, they're bound to be on the wrong side of scales of justice. Because here, number one is the other side, the plaintiff, has been in the case since day one, pre-planned it before it was filed. They have plenty of experience. They know the ins and outs of the entire case. If a lawyer was to come in there today, would he be able to be brought up to speed within that 30 days? Can we even find a lawyer if they're going to have to go through what Bruce did? Because, quite frankly, do you think there isn't a lawyer that won't know about what Bruce went through? They're going to want to know, why did Bruce leave? We've had 2 other lawyers leave. So what is going on there? Is it because of Michelle and John, or is it because of intimidation? I ask you that because it's a question I have in my mind. And what I'm telling you is my opinion of how I feel about the whole thing, what I think is going on. Maybe it is. I don't know. You see, nobody's come out and then disputed it one way or the other. And nobody really wants to talk about it. It's almost like it's the elephant in the room. Are we afraid to question what somebody does when it don't make sense to us? If somebody slams the door on you, don't you want to know why? Did we do something wrong? Are you mad at me? What's going on? You're an officer of the court. Why would you do that to me? Why would you ask questions of the opposing case and not ask questions of me? I am the one that's being sued. Why can't I ask? Why didn't you ask me? The proof of the case was given by the lawyer, but it isn't part of it now because you can clearly see by the way that piece was written that dismissed the lawyer off the case, that he took the word of Michelle and John for dismissing him as the reason and slammed the door on him because it said, you have 30 days now. It's you're even though it doesn't in writing saying you did it, but the piece of paper itself says it in its entirety because of the way it's written. Well, that's just my opinion. I think it's unfair. Here's a case where a couple, a family, that has very little finances, very little. And they're being asked, actually, they're being told, if they don't have a lawyer, they still go to court and they still have to represent themselves. And that is the balance of the scales of the federal justice system as of today, this minute, for that family. I would ask anybody out there that's interested at all, please get on your knees and pray for this family. I love this country. I served years ago, and I haven't changed my mind whatsoever. But I'm sorely disappointed in the way the justice system is being administered in the state of Florida by a federal court system that has turned a blind eye to the need of a private citizen. That is not the scales that I envisioned at all. And with that, folks, I'm done for today. My opinion, I've expressed it out here for all of you to look at. Before you raise me below an oak tree with a rope around my neck, put your feet in the shoes of Michelle and John. Put your feet in the shoes of Bruce. Put your family in the position of his daughters and his wife. Take the names off the people that were involved in there. Doesn't matter whether it was Jeremy or Maskin or Shockhead or John or Michelle or Bruce or his family or the families of others. Guess who else is kind of a little upset, and I don't blame him? Lisa with 2 leaves in a pod has been threatened. Yeah, life-threatening threats. It turns out it's somebody following an opposing channel that actually spends part of the year down there a few miles from Lisa's house. Would that wake you up? All because they have an opposing view of Lisa. Lisa has an opposing view of Mr. Hales. No one should be making threats like that, no matter what side you're on. You should be making no threats to Mr. Hales and his girlfriend or anybody associated with Mr. Hales. And his people that follow him on his channel should be making no threats against those that follow Michelle and John on this case with an opinion of who's right or wrong, or of the judge, or any officer of the court. It's wrong to do that. And I hope you guys understand that you are tipping the scales of justice on a poor family that do not have finances to fight the case. I want you to step in their shoes for a few minutes and think about it. What would you do? What's left to do? And I don't want to hear all about this they brought on themselves. You haven't listened very close to what's happened in the last couple of years. Actions and reactions. And each one getting worse to the point where the threat of life itself is a common practice on a daily basis to both sides. That shouldn't be there, shouldn't be allowed, and needs to be prosecuted. That's my opinion. And you're welcome to have yours. It's a free country to a certain extent, but the scales of justice are being bent. Thank you for listening. As John would say, ta-ta.